Okay, good morning. Today is Sunday, October 20th. It's 4:37 a.m. Been in my office now for about an hour. And I just want to make a quick journal note. I've been had a good night's sleep. Had a couple of weird dreams. Put them in my notes in my folder. I don't think I'm going to capture that here right now. I just wanted to make a reference. I feel good. I slept good, but I was praying, and I couldn't stop yawning. It was like I got the yawns. What's that all about? Now, could be that I had a good sleep, and my body's like, "Oh man, that was awesome." And I did some breathing exercises, some quick, long inhales, shorter exhale. And I watched Tony Robbins do this with his hands up in the air, and he's just like pulling down. And I did that, I don't know, 20, 30 times. It was in his movie, Not Your Guru. I thought that was good. So I do that every once in a while. And gets oxygen to my brain. My brain needs oxygen. That's what the yawns are about. It's trying to get oxygen up into that cranial deposit, gray matter. Wake it up a little bit. And I've already filled out one section, a whole 11-inch half of a page of notes this morning. No, I didn't either. The first half was already done yesterday. Look at me trying to exaggerate here. It's a half a page because I just continued it from yesterday. Never mind. But I'm just working the plan, just continuing the process here, and this is good. It's been a week. It's been a week since I invented this little system, and I'm very excited about this. Very excited. It's electric. It promotes flow, basically, is the bottom line, and that's what I need. I need my flow, and I think that's fundamental. I think that's fundamental to production that can scale, production that is able to produce consistent quality and get maximization out of resources. I'm a limited resource, not an infinite resource. But what's interesting is that what I'm doing is scalable, because these actions, thoughts, ideas, projects, everything, I can delegate and give direction, and those things can get done. And that's a natural, scalable model for business, for any type of human activity. And that's encouraging, because think about it, that's what the church is. It's a scalable model to promote the witnessing of the disciples of who Christ is to the world. And one thing that the early church had that we don't have is flow. It was just natural. It was just a part of who they are, what they're doing. And so I think one of my objectives, kind of intrinsically, is understanding this concept of flow That's what I want to do in business. But then the whole point of doing it in business is so that you have a platform and a way and the resources to communicate this as a what's the word I want to use? Communicate it to the church, to the world, as the simple methodology for getting the work done that's in front of us. My mind has been going back and forth over a few things, trying to discern what's right, what's the will of God for certain actions, certain things that are pivotal and questionable. I made a note yesterday, and I think I'm going to follow up. I think this is a good message, but regarding the words of Jesus when he said, "My sheep hear my voice." I think that's not as easy as it sounds. And it is as easy as it sounds once you understand what's going on. The key there has to do with sheep and the shepherd and the identity of the sheep, who they are. Because it's a metaphor. Sheep is a metaphor for God's people, his followers, his children, his siblings. With regard to Jesus, we're joint heirs with Christ. We are also the sons of God in the biblical sense. And because of that, we now have this unique channel of communication. But what complicates that is that we are on a party line, like they used to have way back in the day, when people shared phone lines. You picked up the phone, you could hear your neighbor talking because they were on the same line. You had to wait till they were done before you could make a call. We're spirit beings. We're in a spiritual world. A spiritual world that is ruled by the prince and power of the air. We're in enemy territory. And it's a battlefield. And without God, we're alone and naked in that battlefield. But when we become sheep, we're not alone anymore. Then we have access to the shepherd. Then we can hear the shepherd because we recognize the shepherd. But there's a catch. There's a factor we have to consider, which I think by and large has been missed in our realm, in our world, in our human understanding, and that is the enemy knows what the shepherd sounds like. Mostly. He can make a really good impression of the shepherd. He can make you think he's the shepherd. So how do we tell the difference? Because he's a good impersonator, and this is the spirit realm. So we're talking about ideas, thoughts, the things that impact us, how we interact in that realm. How do we tell the difference? I think there's one key aspect. This is the key to unlock the code, if you will, because God is love. The message of our shepherd is love, period. It's love in action. Everything comes back to first and second commandment. And to us in this world, it's about loving others. We love God first because He first loved us. But we can't love others completely, truly, unselfishly, benevolently, without that connection to the source of love. There's counterfeit love everywhere, but there's only one source of authentic love. There's almost love. There's selfish love. There's different flavors, versions of things that look and sound like love in the world. But there's only one that is based on pure empathy and benevolence and the well-being of others. That's the love of Christ. So that's the first thing. We interpret what we hear as this contributing to the love of God in the universe, in our world, in our realm. Is it a blessing? And I thought, hey, that's a good litmus. But then what if we get some kind of impression, thought, or whatever, but we're not able to figure that out? How is that, the benevolent aspect of that isn't obvious? Well, in that case, we need to trust ourselves. We need to follow the love that is in us, our redeemed self, our own understanding of what's going on. And this is how we process certain leadings, certain aspects, certain things that are open-ended. And I'm not going to go through the whole description here, but the event that I experienced where at kind of a craft show, I'll put it that way, local, a couple that I knew were starting a business and a furniture refinishing business, and they had this kind of big space that they opened up to local artisans to come in and set up shop. It was their grand opening. It was a way, and then they, I think, did this quarterly to bring people into their shop, and it was actually a pretty good marketing idea. And I was walking through there, and this one woman made jewelry and different things, and I was wearing a suit. It was in the morning, and it looked a little odd, and I actually gave the prayer of dedication there that morning, but that's not what the suit was for. The suit was because I was leaving there. It was a Saturday morning and going to a funeral, not a funeral, a celebration of life service at a church. A man that I'd worked with had passed away, and he had been cremated, and they were having this celebration of life at this church, and then they were going to have the funeral right after that. And I was going to go there to pay my regards to the family and so forth. And we had a little conversation with this woman who had this, and these were all Christians, mostly Christians. I think they were all Christians, the artisans. And she grabbed this little angel. I think it was an angel pin or a charm. I think it might have been a pin. And put it in an envelope and said, "Here, I want you to give this to somebody there at the It's a family member there at the funeral. You'll know who to give it to. I'm like, huh? And she said, yeah. And I don't remember explicitly if she said she felt like that was the Lord telling her, but that was the impression I was left with. That, here, give this to somebody there. Yeah, I don't think that was even said explicitly. So I took it, put it in my pocket, and I go to the funeral, and I go to the celebration of life, and I meet some people that I worked with, and it's been a few years since I saw some of them, but I knew this man and his wife. I actually went to her funeral. I worked with them, and for, almost 15 years, closer to 20 years actually. So, and both the kids worked at one point. Actually, the son worked, the daughter didn't, but she married a guy that did work there. And she was a hairdresser, and I went to her salon back when I had hair. So I'm there, and I'm talking to people, and I saw the son, and I talked with him and had a good conversation, and I was looking for his sister, and I couldn't find her, and I asked her where she was at. I said, oh, she's here somewhere. And I was just, mingling, standing there, and then she comes walking down the hall. She went out to get something to eat, had a cup from McDonald's, I think. Come walking in, and I said hello, shared my condolences, and then I told her, now I'm going to tell you something that's kind of weird. And she looked at me, and then I explained what happened. And I said, this woman gave me this thing and said to give it to somebody here, so I'm going to give it to you. And I gave it to her, and she opened it up, and her jaw dropped, literally. Her mouth opened, her jaw dropped, and she just looked at me, and her eyes popped when she saw that angel pin. And I thought, well, that's cool. I don't know, did I surprise her? Whatever. Here, angel wings was kind of a thing between her and her dad, and she had a tattoo of angel wings on her wrist in honor of her dad, and has had that for years. Now, I don't know in the big scheme of things what that happened. I never seen her again. I haven't seen her again, and that's been over probably 10 or more years since then. But I said that to kind of reflect on the fact that we know, even though my sheep hear my voice, we hear his voice, we know the shepherd, and we trust the shepherd. And so, as we go along through life, when we encounter things like that, it's our knowledge of the shepherd, our knowledge of what's going on, that will help us discern and move through life in this place of discovery. And we have to be willing to listen and to just kind of go with the flow and find out after a few steps that, oh, yeah, okay, this makes sense. These things make sense now. When I was thinking about this, I started to say, well, using benevolence and love as a metric, as a litmus, that if you don't see that, well, then that's not from the shepherd. Well, that's not exactly correct, because we don't know what the intent is. We don't know when we hear something. We hear a leading, we hear this. What we, and this is the fuzzy part, this is the hard part, is the discernment. This is about understanding who the shepherd is, who his voice is, and also who we are, and trusting our gut, trusting our inner person, our inner man, to follow correctly. When we do that, we'll follow God. We will be where God wants us to be, doing what he wants us to do, and interacting with people in a way that he is working with, not from a puppet master standpoint, but from a partner standpoint. He's working with them. He loves them. He wants to bring everyone into the kingdom. Then he wants them to experience and to connect with his children so they can help them do that, so they can become his children. Does that make sense? It's still kind of fuzzy. That's not a black and white thing, and I'm sure there's more to this that I'll discover and put together, but I wanted to make that kind of clarifying, but just add that little nuance and depth to this aspect of hearing. My sheep hear my voice. What does that mean? And what's the purpose of his voice, of what he says? I think fundamentally it's probably just a few things. The messages we receive, it's for affirmation. Just the message is for us to affirm that we're his sheep, and confirmation of his love. So he affirms who we are, and he confirms his love for us in that bi-directional relationship. That's the purpose of it. That's how we are edified. That's how we are built up in our personal relationship with God, in our walk with the shepherd. But then there are the directions. Go here, follow me, do this. And the shepherd guides the sheep. And gets a sheepdog out there to kind of help along the way, but it's the shepherd who's guiding the events, taking them by the stream, taking them by the pasture, taking them on their life journey. That's the purpose. And that's why it's distinct. It's a distinct communication with the sheep, because it's not just an abstract input like a instruction over a speakerphone somewhere. This is an intimate conversation. It's an intimate communication, is maybe a better way to put it. Intimate and ongoing. Our trust in the shepherd should be implicit, and our response should be automatic. It should be natural, because it's affirming, it's confirming, and it's directive. And that direction is for our benefit or for the benefit of someone else, but either way, the purpose of all of that is the expression of the shepherd's love for the world, for everyone. He loves us, his sheep, and he wants us as his sheep to reach out to other sheep, to reach out to others, and bring them into the fold. See how that works? I feel like there's still more to add to this, but I think that's all I'm going to do for now. that just captures the essence of what I was thinking about. So, it's 5:02 a.m. I'm just going to continue on with my little project of doing projects. All right. And listening to the shepherd as we talk about this and go through our day. So, God loves you. I love you. And God bless you. Talk to you later. Bye.